2, 1.
Welcome to another week of Fragments of Silicon's reviews, this time with less coughing. I'm just really glad we have a setup now that allows for easy corrections. Right, so this week we actually only have one game to do, but we have a special episode to do after this. So, because after this is our 2016 year in review program. It's like really couldn't find another place to fit it. Like, we were supposed to do it before last season ended, didn't happen. We weren't bloody doing it during the holidays, and we can't really fit it on the show right now. And time is already ticking down. It's already mid-January, so it's kind of now or never. But before we get to that, the game this week is The Book of Unwritten Tales 2. So this is an interesting case because this game was released in 2015 initially. Yeah, it's a bit old for our standards, but then we have another set of standards in that if a publisher or a developer gifts us a game, well, we got to review it. And I wish we still had the THQ Nordic interview around, but we don't. That's why we precipitated the changes we do. Anyway, we got this game via, in the midst of the conversation we were having with the THQ rep. Now, I had mentioned that we were talking about adventure games. The Book of Unwritten Tales 2 had come up. I had mentioned I had never played that game, and he said, we can fix that for you. And, here we are. Up front, nobody here beat the game. Like,
this is a long adventure game.
Yeah, it's like, I gotta admit, I wasn't used to the length of this because I'm used to, indie adventure games aren't this long usually. It's
even
still
adventure games in general are like maybe 10, 20 hours.
Yeah, it's like I'm about halfway through, I think, and 15 hours. Granted, it's going to take you more time if you explore everything and do it. You look for the extra achievements and stuff. But there's a reason why this game is so long, and I don't think it's necessarily the best reason. But we'll get into that when we get into that. But so it's worth noting that you're looking at a possibly 20-hour game, maybe more. Once again, I've put about 15, 16 hours in the game. I'm only halfway done. It's like I would have, as always, I would have loved to have played more, but it's been a busy week. Busier than usual because of all the Switch news. But we'll be talking more on that on Wednesday. So, just up front, I got the furthest. How far did my colleagues get?
I got confused on the review schedule and was playing next week's game instead of this one, so I screwed up on that front. Hence why there's no recorded footage for this game.
I finished chapter 1 almost, but that's about it.
I don't think I finished chapter 1. I got like, I think 6 hours into it.
Yeah,
Let me see how many hours I actually did.
Yeah, so that's our.
So I only played for like 2 hours, but I did get pretty far. Yeah,
so that's our state of completion. and I couldn't say we would ever get back to this game because, well, here's how the review process works. We play the game that's slated for that week. Afterwards, it's kind of on your own time.
Yeah.
And like I really don't I rarely have time to play anything outside of what I need to play for the show.
Yeah, I'd like to play the rest of this because the story is interesting, but time that I have to play games does not often overlap with time that I'm in front of my computer.
Well, it's like I have a lot more time in front of my computer, but it's just, playing games is not the only aspect of this show I have to do.
Right.
Like I've been, I had to be dealing with guests, dealing with getting codes for the future, research for next week's guest, next week's topic of discussion. We had a special streaming event. We're probably going to try to do more of those because we're trying to build up. We're trying to build up the Twitch channel. We're basically, we're basically starting from scratch on that venue. Don't worry, publishers, developers, whatever. We still have many more areas of release besides Twitch, but this is the new headquarters. I'm like, we're not really expecting our old audience to migrate because we still put out the podcast.
Yeah.
They'll be listening there, but in terms of building up the new live segment, that's going to take time.
Twitch is also a much nicer venue than the Talk To.
Right. People can subscribe.
Well, follow.
Anyway.
But yeah.
So, getting into what the Book of Unwritten Tales 2 is, well, first of all, you can tell it's a sequel.
And it's a pretty direct sequel, it seems like.
Yeah, it's like there will be a lot of allusions to what happened and references and a whole lot of stuff, really. I'd actually say it's probably worth playing the Book of Unwritten Tales 1 first, if you can. Because here's another thing. The first game was only released on the PC platforms.
Which, if you're us or one of the people who's following us who plays games on PC, that's not a problem. But if you wanted to play this game on something else, which this game is on almost everything, you might have some trouble with that.
Right. Well, you can play the second game. Like, for whatever reason, the Book of Unwritten Tales 2 is available on all consoles.
Yeah, that's what I meant. If you wanted to play the first one before playing this one on something else, you might have some problems.
But it's like you can get the Book of Unwritten Tales 2, on a... and though I will note, you can get a physical version of the game only on some of them. It's like the 8th generation consoles got the physical release. The PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions you can only buy digitally. Now, also worth noting, since it's a cross-generational title, it'll run smoothly on a variety of platforms. Worth noting because this game was actually built in Unity.
Yeah, and it's pretty good looking, but it's not ridiculously graphically intensive.
No. It's a Unity game done right, I'd say. Because, we've mentioned on the show, we play a lot of Unity games. It just comes with the territory, and sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not, but what's really been taking a hit recently is performance. Even some of the good games are getting hit with that.
Yeah, it seems like the general expectation of performance has been going up.
But in the case of the Book of Unwritten Tales... But in the case of the Book of Unwritten Tales 2, the production values are quite high. Probably the highest I've seen in a traditional adventure game in quite some time.
And this is a very traditional adventure game.
Yeah, that's another thing worth noting. If you've been following us over the past year or so, we've been delving into a lot of adventure games, and we've talked a lot about adventure games and related things to that. We've reviewed a lot of adventure games that were in the mold, out of the mold, every which way. This game, it's like if you're a fan of adventure games from the 90s, this is right up your alley. But if you're looking for the more modern, narrative-driven, telltale style of adventure game, seek elsewhere. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, go actually find a Telltale game.
This is a game that is heavily puzzle-oriented and inventory-oriented.
Oh yeah, it's classic. Use the thing on the thing in order to achieve a goal.
Is there a lot of item humping on this one?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh god.
Yes.
I'm like, you'll be item hunting, pixel hunting. It's like, this is an exemplar of what the genre used to be.
There will be things you need to look at 3 or 4 times before they do the thing that they need to do.
Mm-hmm. It's like you will need to go back places that you might not have thought of going back. I'm like I said,
it's not entirely obtuse if you keep a good track of what's available at all times.
Yeah,
it will usually be something that gives you a hint of what to do next, but you're gonna need to look.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. Adventure games. The old school adventure games get a bad rap because, the highly illogical nature of the puzzles being presented. And I will still contend that's usually the bad adventure games. The bad adventure games are the ones where the line of logic is so obscure that only the developer themselves or the hint guide would know. Sometimes that was intentional. Like, sometimes they made it...
I think that's excluding the DRM puzzles, which are puzzles exclusively to prove that you legally bought the game.
Well, I'm talking about, like, back in the early 90s, Sierra made their puzzles ridiculously hard in order to sell hint books. That kind of thing.
And or the infamous Sierra logic. Like, see King's Quest for that.
I'm like, we'll get Ogre to play that game one day.
We're also going to have to keep him on suicide watch.
Anyway, so this game, this game you can definitely follow the logic. Although, I won't lie, you're probably going to hit logic walls. You're probably going to hit, what do I do next syndrome at points. I did.
Yeah, even in the fairly little amount that I played, I ran into a couple of things where I did not know. I knew what had to happen next, but I didn't know how to make it happen. Right. So I just kept trying things that were possible until it happened.
And that flows into probably the biggest problem with the game I had is the overall structure, because this game loves layered puzzles. Like, you're doing things to get things to unlock other things for the big thing that you're doing in a certain segment. Like, it's not so much you're dealing with a puzzle, but a chain of puzzles that needs a, it's like you need to gather 3 things together, the one thing you need for the overall goal of the scenario.
Yeah, you have a goal puzzle, but then, like, there will be puzzles to get most of the parts that you need for each of the parts of that final goal puzzle.
And it all kind of flows together, and that's why the game is so long. I'm like, I'll be honest, it kind of feels like padding at points.
Yeah, artificial lengthening.
Yeah, it's like this is why the game takes so long, because you not only do you have to go and solve all the puzzles, but you got a lot of dialogue in between. It's a very dialogue-heavy game. Once again, it being an old-school adventure game, even the old-school adventure games had a lot of talking going on. It's just
getting out of your locked room can never be as easy as just picking the lock. Instead, you have to bribe the bird into getting stuck in the music box with sunflower seeds and a mirror, and then you have to go down the garden.
That's just like the first puzzle of the proper adventure.
I know. I'm just saying it's a good example of Because that's what I tried to do. I thought the thing you had to do was get the bird to move so you could get into your jewelry box, and I thought there might be something you could use to pick locks in there, but no.
As it turns out, you have to go over the balcony.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's probably handy to have a guide. Like, I had a guide because, I don't really have time to get stuck in adventure games these days.
And you're not missing out on everything by using a guide, because there's still the performance of the voice acting is pretty good, and you're still missing out on a lot of descriptive stuff, even if you have a guide that tells you what to go, where to go, and what to click on.
I will say there's the occasional. I'm not going to call it a logic puzzle, but there are gestures you have to remember. So keep an eye out for them. And there was also a mathematical puzzle in the last section I played. It was pure, figure out the maths in order to find the right number dealy.
And there are calculators online for that if you're, math.
So if you're going to go online, you might as well look up in a guide. It's
That's what I do. I suck at math.
yeah. Anyway, so the Book of Unwritten Tales. It's a bit of a odd title since, well, the title.
Someone's writing something.
Yeah, the title kind of goes against the framing, at least in this game, because the first thing you see is a big old book. Like, okay, if these are unwritten, what is all this then? It's like a book of unwritten tales would be oral tradition.
Well, it could still be a book, but it would have to have something weird about it. I don't know.
I guess the technicality is they were images instead of words. It's a picture book.
I guess.
I'm like, my point is, there's a big old book there. So, irony? I don't know. Maybe it's something that we have to ask the developer.
But it's very much, it's a fantasy story that is... It is serious. It's like a serious fantasy world that has its rules, but it also has a lot of places where it pokes fun at other fantasy things.
I'd say it's... it's not a satire on fantasy tropes or anything like that. But it's got meta humor. Meta humor aplenty. It's got pop culture stuff, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, a lot of Harry Potter, because you got a wizarding school in there. So of course there's going to be a lot of Harry Potter. A whole bunch of just a whole bunch of fantasy stuff. And it's not just that. Princess Ivo, she's basically a more mature version of a Disney princess. Their story's kind of structured that way.
Well, she's an elf, and she has her own things, and I don't think there are many... Well, that's kind of spoilers, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's like that. That's kind of the twist, though. Like...
She's not a straightforward Disney princess, but she is like one in some ways, and is treated like one in some ways.
She's like that... Yeah, she's like that because she wants more out of life, and her mother is domineering and is trying to get her to lead a traditional life. And
in fairness, if I was in her situation, I'd probably want more too.
Yeah, it's like trying to do an arranged marriage because this is what she went through. It's a story we've seen a lot, especially from Disney. It's just what happens in the midst of that. That's the twist that Disney would never, ever go. I'm like and it's really something that ups the maturity rating. Because honestly, sanitized fairy tales like this, the Disney fairy tales don't talk about mature subjects. Real fairy tales, they had no problems.
Brothers Grimm, anyone?
Yeah.
Well, even the Brothers Grimm sanitized a lot of sex stuff in fairy tales.
Yeah, but
they left in the violence is the thing that Disney cut out.
Still, it's like this is still something that wouldn't have been outside of the realm of the Brothers Grimm, let's say.
Aside from it's a lot more self-aware.
Yeah. And anyway, you are actually playing as a band of adventurers in these games. It's like both games star the same cast. We've already talked about the Elven Princess Ivo. You've got Nate, who he's actually the character you first see in the tutorial. Like
he's the quote unquote main character of the story. He's the stereo.
I will tell you right now, if there is a main character in this, it is Wilbur Weathervane. The amount of time you spend with him relative to everyone else is pretty noticeable. I wasn't keeping track, but I was playing as Wilbur Weathervane a lot more than the others going in 2 chapters.
Yeah, I phrased that wrong, and I was about to correct myself when you interrupted. He's who would be the hero if the story was written by the people who usually write stories.
No. He's not the hero. He would never be the hero.
Nate is.
No. What I'm talking about in a classical fairy tale, like Nate would be the second. He's the roguish, charming one. He's Han Solo basically. That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. There are productions where that kind of character would be a star, but a Disney production, that's more, you'd see Luke Skywalker. Like Nate is a bit too flawed. I mean, the closest I can come up with is Aladdin, but even that is, Nate is too much of an unabashed pirate that would be comfortable for the sake of Disney.
Okay.
Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that's.
Well, he did steal something, so.
Yeah, it's like Nate is a, he's basically Han Solo. He's a roguish pirate with a heart of gold,
but his fuzzy companion is purple and not as big.
Yeah, he's accompanied by a creature called the Critter. He's a furry alien creature who speaks in a nonsense language, and I don't know how. He actually has his own game called The Critter Chronicles, a prequel I really don't know anything about. And you've also got Wizard Wilbur Weathervane. So the twist
he is not a good wizard.
Yeah. He sort of is, but it's like that's kind of a spoilery topic. Let's just say.
Also, he's a gnome, which is what they call short.
Well,
what they call hobbits or halflings in this.
Technically speaking, I think gnomes are different. Well, gnomes are different from halflings and hobbits because gnomes predate that. They're from fucking Norway.
Yeah, but it's used as that in this situation. They're short people that are.
Yeah, I know. He's basically supposed to be Bilbo Baggins or Frodo Baggins, or he's supposed to be like from the Shire, even though he's actually from a mountain range. He grew up around dwarves. And another difference, between gnomes and hobbits is gnomes are more dwarven in the fact that they're machinists. That was kind of, from what I looked up, that was kind of Weathervane's story in the first game. Gnomes are engineers basically, but he wanted to become a wizard. And now he's teaching a class. He's teaching at a recently returned university.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, rather, it's basically Hogwarts.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of poking fun at Hogwarts and Harry Potter in this scenario for obvious reasons. Anyway, so it's taking place not long after the end of the Great War that happened in the first game, and like as it turns out, there shit's still going bad, but kind of in a different way.
The initial crisis in this is that stuff is being turned pink, which is pretty bad actually, and it's not just turning pink, it's being weird. But the initial description you hear of it the first time you hear about it is it's actually compared to the nothing in the never-ending story.
Indeed, but I've gotten to the part where it's been explained at least somewhat what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's not just that things are being turned pink, it's they're being turned into kind of what a little girl would desire.
Yeah, they're being cutesified. The first thing you actually see of it is that it's a hippogriff that's been turned from a majestic bird horse monster into a hippopotamus with wings and kind of a beak.
Right.
Like a little cute hippo, not a real hippo.
Yeah, and the four protagonists of the story have to stop this. First on their own, but they're going to get together. I'm presuming that happens in chapter 3 or chapter 4.
Yeah, I flipped ahead in the guide, and they have in 3. I think they swap around who's with who a little bit, but they end up all together. So
yeah, it's worth noting when you do get multiple characters, there will be puzzles based around that, because Nate and the Critter are always there, and they're two of the protagonists. So it's also worth noting that the game starts with Princess Ivo in the present and then goes backwards to Wilbur Weathervane and Nate, because Nate starts in medias res, and you're told that Wilbur has done something horrible, and then you learn what led up to these events.
Right. At the very beginning of the game, you get the introduction from Nate's perspective as he's falling to his presumable death, and you just have to begin the tutorial of getting out of that. Then there's the title sequence, which is a significant tutorial that's probably more than it needs to be. And then you go to Ivo for the first real story segment, and then at the end of her thing, you go back in time a month to Wilbur.
Right. And that's what, and it's actually the first half of the game outside of Ivo, learning getting all the backstory on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's really chapter 3 is when you start moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the music. The music is pretty adventurous. There's a lot of trumpets, a lot of brass.
Yeah, the epic feel to it.
Yeah.
The music is mostly straightforward fantasy music.
Yeah. It's nothing too memorable. It sets the tone, although you may tire of it because it'll play constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think the sound mixing was kind of weak because there were points where the music drowned out the audio.
I did notice that.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
I actually turned it down some.
Yeah, it's that's a sign of bad audio mixing.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, you can turn the sound down. Let's see. No, the soundtrack is not available independently, at least not on Steam or anything. Maybe Bandcamp or something. But outside of that, not really. Let's see. We really couldn't talk about any system-specific features. Nobody played it on the Wii U, so I don't know what it does if anything, with the tablet. I can imagine what it does. It'll replicate the point-and-click stuff.
Yeah, it's probably mostly just off TV play where you can point and click on the tablet.
That's what I'd imagine.
Though I could be mistaken. Anyway, but
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the weird stuff with this is in the controls, I think.
Yeah,
Which it's all point and clicking, but sometimes you have to click multiple times to get it to cancel out of the thing you were doing before.
Yeah, yeah. It's like my biggest problem was the glitching. Like there were times when I clicked on something and then the character would get stuck. Like they would just loop around or something like that.
I noticed that visual thing, and I think we might be talking about the same thing. But then I realized, based on what the cursor was doing, that what was actually happening for me was that, like they were like stopping doing the first thing they were doing and like resetting to a neutral point in their idle animation or something before they did the thing.
Yeah, that might be it.
Possible.
Right. Let's see. All right. Pricing. So this is an interesting one. On Steam, it's currently $30.
That's a little high. But this is a really long story with really good production values generally.
Hang on, because that's a bad price for a couple reasons. Because the console versions, or at least from what I've seen, are $20. Even the physical versions are $20.
That's weird.
Oh, Adam, you know how you said you couldn't get the soundtrack? You can on Steam. It's the Almanac edition. It's like a $10 upgrade.
And
it comes with the
that's why I
soundtrack,
did.
art book, making of documentary.
Okay, that's what's throwing me off here. That's the sorry. So that's what I'm looking at here. This is the Almanac edition. That's with the soundtrack.
Okay, so that for $30 is fair.
Oh no! That's $34. This is $30. Still, the base pricing. Sorry, screwed up there. But I mean, just look on Amazon for the current prices of this game. This might take a bit. Book of Unwritten Tales 2, let's say, for the PlayStation 4.
Well, it looks like the add-ons are for getting the Almanac edition. It's $35.
Okay.
But the DLC is $10 separately on Steam. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the PlayStation 4 Standard Edition. It's $20. It's actually on sale right now, so it's $12.
Yeah, and that's for physical or digital?
Physical edition.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's kind of not. I mean, I think that $20 is a better price for this than $30 is, but I don't think $30 is terrible.
30 isn't terrible, but it's terrible in relationship to the other versions. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I'm
and getting the Almanac edition for $35 is a better deal.
Yeah, I'm like, it's only $5 more, but I'm like, when the physical editions of the consoles are costing $20, that's not acceptable.
Unless they're really, 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 really bad ports.
And just to double emphasize this, it's $35 and the DLC separately, like the soundtrack and stuff, is $10, so it's less that way. It's a significant discount to get the Almanac edition to start with.
Yeah, the Almanac comes with a 104-page art book, making a video, the orchestral soundtrack, 2 posters, exclusive in-game content, color your critter, and an expanded manual.
Which I'm assuming that's probably like a pseudo guide almost.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's like pick up the full version of this if you're doing it on Steam. Otherwise,
wait for a sale.
Yeah, or hunt down one of the console versions. I guess if I'd have to pick probably the Wii U version. Not only is it because you'd probably get the point-and-click experience that the game demands, but it's also from what I'm seeing on Amazon, it's the cheapest. Xbox One, it's $15. PlayStation 4, it's $12. Wii U, $7.93.
I wonder if there's a performance issue with that. But even if there is, that's still probably
I'll note these are sale prices. The regular price is looks like $20 across the board. But I'm willing to bet you'd be able to get the Wii U version for the cheapest.
I'm curious as to why it's so much more expensive on PC. Unless that's like really the best version for some reason.
That is a good question. Like, it's like shit. Even on like the physical PC version, which is only a European exclusive, is $20.
Well, it's like even the digital version of the game on PSN is $20. So it's not just a fluke sale thing, that it's actually what the price of the game is.
Yeah, or the Almanac edition on Amazon is $30. I do not know what's going on with the Steam version here, but I'd recommend getting it outside of Steam if you can, because that's a better option.
Because for those of you at home, traditionally the Steam version is the cheapest and the console versions are more expensive because console licensing fees are expensive.
Yeah, so
yeah, I'm actually kind of baffled at this. And again, I don't think $30 is a ridiculous price, or $35 for the Almanac thing, but I think a cheaper price, I think $20 in the $20 range would be better.
Yeah. If it's the same game for $20, there's something wrong.
Yeah, it's like there's something here. I don't know what it is, but it's like I'd actually recommend the Steam version last, because it's readily available on other platforms, both PC and console, and it's cheaper to boot. I'm not sure if it's on GOG at this point. Let me take a look at that. Let me see if
it is. I was actually starting to look it up, and it's $30 as well.
So for some reason, they think the PC version of this is worth $10 more than any of the consoles.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't understand this.
Yeah, usually this is the reverse, but when we have THQ Nordic, we can ask.
Yeah, we'll be having them back on the end of January, and I'm going to send this review to our contact there, because I said I would. I was looking forward to hearing our thoughts on the game, and I'm like, Philip might respond to this in a letter. I'm like, so if you've reached this point in the interview, review, we are wondering exactly what is going on with the price here.
Yeah, I do really enjoy the game, and I don't think that it's like a ripoff, but I don't understand it.
No, it's not if it's a ripoff, it's because the box console versions cost less than the digital Steam version.
Right. It's really confusing.
It's an oddity.
Yeah. It's like, so I'm like, I would
be less surprised if the box console versions were $30, and I would say if they were anything near as good, that would be fair.
Yeah, I'm like, I'd say unless it's a Steam sale, wait, get this only if you like the sake of convenience, or the GOG version for that matter.
Yeah, unless we hear something like there's bonus content for the PC version only.
Yeah,
or the graphics are better, or the other versions have less voice acting or anything.
Right. Anyway, so final thoughts. I'd give this game a 7.5. It's a fairly solid, fairly lengthy game. Although it's very vested in the in the old school, even though like everything else is pretty modern. Like, and that might not be everyone's cup of tea. It's also
I'd go 8 because it's a very good modern attempt to recapture the meaning of.
It's also there's a little too much jankiness for my liking to go like the full 8.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, Twilight. What about you?
Yeah, I'd go with probably about 7. It's a pretty enjoyable game. It's pleasing to look at and such, and if you enjoy the old school style adventure games, I'd recommend it.
And Petty Fan rates the game as played the wrong game out of 10.
Yeah. Whoops.
All right, so yeah, the Book of Unwritten Tales 2. A solid recommendation. Just, be wary of the version you are purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a follow-up to this, I'll mention it on the show. If not, well, we'll be left to speculate eternally, or at least until the end of January. Anyway, so coming up next, it's our 2016 in review. Be sure to tune in, and if not, well, this is why we record things.
Spoilers: 2016 sucked. No, I'm kidding. The games didn't suck, just the year.
We'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, until a little bit forward in time, I wish you good gaming.